I want to share a little bit of my experience of South Louisiana. When I came from Oklahoma, everything down here fascinated me. Everything. I had never seen anything such as this. I'd never seen an orange tree. A tree that grew oranges. Wow. In Oklahoma, we had apple trees and pear trees, and peaches, but we didn't have what you have here in the South. Everything that you took for granted, I did not. So I worked on the rigs for, I don't know, a few months, and then I got on with Shell Oil Company, working in the seismograph. Seismograph is, we were called doodle buggers. We were also called, this is to look for oil, seismograph. So I have actually walked from Orange, Texas to pretty close to Lake Pontchartrain. All through the swamp, or the marshes, or the bayous, or the hard land, everything fascinated me. I'd never seen anything that you take for granted. I'd never seen a palmetto. I'd never seen the moss. I'd never seen a tree as huge and as pretty as the live oak tree. So I would walk through the swamp up to my chest and snake infested, but we all had walking sticks and we just flipped them out of the way. So we walked and then we got into the area of Dulac. Now if we could, we lived on a quarter boat. The quarter boat was back in the swamp. And the swamp is where there's water and trees, but mostly trees, and the water varied the depth of it. We had boats, we had little 14-foot skiffs that they called them, and 7.5 Mercury motors. So this is what we worked in the deeper water and in lakes, because we shot lakes from Lake Charles all through there, White Lakes, south of Abbeville, Morgan City, and we got into Houma area. So these were all little bayous, and of course, I'm curious about everything. I ask people questions. And what is this? And what does that mean in French? But most people take all this for granted. I did not. So as we got into the part of Dulac, which is south of Houma, we worked in a swamp. We worked in the marsh. We had marsh buggies to go in the marsh because you couldn't walk in it. Some of it was floating marsh. Floating marsh, as I asked her, what is that? It's a floating marsh. I said, but I don't know what that means. Oh, it's vegetation that builds up year after year. Say flowers and grass grow, and then it dies. Then next spring, it comes back up, and it dies. Over many years, it's like it might be 1 foot deep, 2 foot, or it could be 6 feet or more deep. But there's water underneath it. And you walk on it, it would shake. And my first explanation, it was like Jell-O. I would jump to make it shake all around me, which was pretty amazing. And so we got into the part of Dulac, and we're working on land when we have our trucks. So we have to use our trucks to go across the land and people's property. They've already gotten permission. So our quarter boat was parked in Dulac. I don't remember a lot of the names or where they were, but I did at that time. So there was like Little Caillou, Grand Caillou, Dulac. There's different names I can remember, Manchac, and those names fascinated me. We were in there in the 50s before there was ever an oil well or a gas well. We had a seismograph. We had pipe that was 10 foot long. It was made of aluminum and they screwed together. So we may drill down to where it's pretty solid. It might be, and each one, is best I remember, 8 or 10 foot long. So we might go down 50 foot. Sometime we'd go more, 100 foot. And then they put a stick of dynamite and it had a cap in it. And then they ran the wire out, and the person that activated it sat over with an instrument, and what the jugs, as we call them, to record the vibration of the earth, which indicated the soft spots of the high and whatever. It was a chart. So then they got ready, and we set what we call jugs and the lines out. Well, I would hurry and set my jugs out. They weighed 65 pounds. So we had to walk through the swamp with this on our back, and that was fun to me because I never got to do that. Where other things that they hated, I loved it. And the marsh, I never knew what cut grass was. It's a blade of grass that the edges are very sharp, kind of jagged, and yeah, they will cut you. So that was the name they called it. That was the Cajuns and all of that. So we got into Houma. I can remember we would drill a well to put the dynamite in. And when they would shoot the charge, and sometime mud would come up out of it. And he might build a mound, maybe 6 to 8 foot high, and cover the pipe. And then it would stop. But I asked one of the guys, I said, "What is that?" They said, "Oh, we call it surface gas." Gas? I said, "Yes." I said, "Real gas like it burns?" Said, "Yeah, that will burn." Well, oh, curious me, I had to get a mud ball, and I got some matches and I took it, I got some grass and got it to lit it, and I stood way back and I threw it, and it caught fire. It burned. Oh my gosh, you're not supposed to do that, but I was curious. So it finally bridged over and put the fire out. So we're in this bayou where our quarter boat is. I don't remember now exactly. I know we went south of Houma on shell roads. The small shells this big, I think they got them out of Lake Pontchartrain. They put these on the roads back then. And as they break, they create bad dust. So we are there with our quarter boat, and we go south. There was a movie theater on my right next to the bayou was right behind it. So that bayou went further down, and right before it turned to the left across the road, that's where we had our quarter boat. It was a bridge that just fascinated me. A boat would come through, small boats, but shrimp boats, they couldn't go under the bridge. So there was a man that'd blow the horn, I think, 2 times. Then he would go there, he had a wheel, and put that in the middle of the bridge and turn it like a wheel. And the bridge would turn sideways. And then he would go through. Or they would come back into home. I just thought that was fascinating. I'd go over there we worked 12 hours a day from 6 in the morning to 6 at night. So there were times that I would hurry and shower and change clothes and eat and go out there and watch this man open that bridge. I always wanted to do it, but I never did because I was afraid to ask him, and he probably didn't speak English anyway. But a lot of the people there were Indians. So we're on land, and I'm driving this big truck. And so whenever I would meet people, I would slow down, keep from throwing dust on them. But people from Houma going down past there to go fishing and wherever, they just kept going. They didn't slow down. Well, dust these poor people under. So there were two young girls walking. I have no idea, teenagers, or older. And I came by and I went real slow. Well, we weren't allowed to pick anyone up in a company vehicle. And when I got back to the quarter boat, I told some of the guys, I said, wow, I saw two very pretty Indian girls today. If it hadn't been against the company rules, I'd have asked them if they wanted to ride. No one said anything. A couple of days later, I'm in the truck again, and I happened to see two more. So I told them, I said, wow, I says, I saw two Indian girls, they sure were pretty. And I said, I watched them when I was coming back to the quarter boat. They crossed the bridge where the quarter boat was just to our right, just a little bit there. They crossed the wooden bridge, then they went down, they turned to the right, then they went up the bayou, but they were on the west side of that bayou. And they went into this bar which came out on stilts into the water. Now that fascinated me too. I'd never seen any house or anything on stilts. All up and down the bayou there were homes out in the bayou on stilts. So I saw where those two girls went. Well, later on I found out they were sisters. I don't remember how old they were, but they weren't, 12 or 14. They were 17, 18 years old or older. Very pretty girls. So I said, I saw some of those Indian girls today. And I want to go there. They're over there, and I saw them go, and I think it's a bar, but I don't know that. So these are all white guys that I worked with. I call them white guys. They were Cajuns from various parts of Louisiana, and some from Texas. One of them, they always call me Chief, or something pertaining to an Indian. I've been called everything from Geronimo, you name it. It doesn't bother me. One of them said, now, Chief, you can't go over there. I said, why not? I said, I don't drink, but I want to go in there and maybe I can meet these girls, or I don't know if they live there or work there or what. I said, you can't go in there. But they didn't say everything. It was, no one would talk. There was about 5 of them there talking to me. I said, why not? Why can't I go in there? I said, if they're Indians, well, I'm an Indian. He said, no. I said, that's not Indians. I said, what I saw, they were Indians, and I know Indians when I see an Indian. I said, no, it's not. And that's why you can't go to their places, and you can't go to their places, then they can't go to our places. Well, if they're not Indians, what are they? Said they're Sabines. I said, oh, is that their tribe? No one said anything. I said, well, what do you mean? What is that? Well, that's a word that we call them. Not us, but other people. A Sabine? Yeah. But you see them, you don't want to say that because it's a bad word. It's just about disappeared today, and that's similar to the word kunas in Cajun. The word kunas is just about gone also. When I first came down here, it wasn't a bad word. Everyone used it. So back to Dulac. They said, well, they're mixed. Mixed what? Mixed races. I said, oh, but you cannot go to their places. So we stayed down there over 4 months. We came there, and an indication there was oil or gas, then we went back and reshot some of the old lines to get some more information. So we lived there about 4.5, almost 5 months. So we had a place that they would all go to, was right there close to our quarter boat, was called Bro, Breaux apostrophe S. Bro's Bar and a Dance Hall. So I was determined to see these Indian girls. And I was determined to go to that place. That yes, it was a bar. So I told my buddy, I said, I sure need you to help me. He said, what do you want? I want to go over there, and I want to go in. Well, they done told us we can't go there. I said, I know that, but I think they'll let us. Well, he said, okay, I'll go with you. But if we go there and they go to, if we have to fight our way out, I won't leave you. I said, okay. So we formed a pact. I won't leave you and you won't leave me. So he was a white guy from Mississippi. And he was a little bit older than I. So we go to this bar, and it's a rectangle building. In the middle of the rectangle was a jukebox as you walk in on the left side, and the tables on the right. Then all the way in the back was a bar. There was about 3 couples dancing in a small section that might have been, I don't know, maybe 20-foot square, dancing to music from the jukebox. When I walked to the door, I hesitated. My buddy was behind me. He pushed me. So I'm in, and the people dancing, they stopped dancing and looked at me and my buddy coming in the building. Now I'm trying to make up my mind which would be the more courteous thing to do. Go between them and the jukebox, or go out in the tables and go around them. But I did not want to go near the dance floor, because people had done told us, the white people had done told us that they didn't like us. Well, I walked in, went out into the tables, and they are watching, but the dancers, they was followed us as we went past them. Then I go to the bar. There was a man, a woman, and there was those 2 daughters. So we go to the opposite end of them. We're at the bar, and I could see out of the corner of my eye that those kids that were dancing, they stopped, and they're standing on the dance floor watching us. So the man was talking to his family, his wife. I could hear them, but I didn't understand it because they were speaking, and I think it was French, because I didn't know French words then at all. So he walks up in front of me, and I says, "Will you serve us?" He said, "Where are you from?" Oh, he said, "Are you working with that quarter boat, that bunch?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Well, I was living in Jennings." I said, "In Jennings?" "No, where are you originally from?" I said, "Oh, I'm from Oklahoma, and this is my friend from Mississippi." He says, "You must be an Indian, huh?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Yeah, we'll serve you. What do you want?" I said, "He wants a beer and bring me a Coke." I said, "I don't drink." He said, "What kind of beer?" I said, "It doesn't matter. It didn't matter because I'm glad that he's going to talk to us and not beat us up like we were told." So he goes over, and then I found out later that was his wife and two daughters. So he's over there talking to them. Then he gets the beer and brings it, and I put it. Now these people are standing still at the dance floor, not moving, just watching us. I said, "Oh my gosh, we may not get out of here." So I said, "Well, the jukebox still playing music." I said, "If I give you some money, will you have someone to play some music, keep the music going?" I said, "Sure." So I gave him some money, and he went and talked to him a little bit, and then he spoke in English, and he told it was his daughters, "And you tell those out there either dance or get off of the dance floor." So she goes out, plays the jukebox and tells them, and they sit down. But they're still watching us. So the man came back and asked me questions about me coming in there. I said, "I was curious to come over here." I said, "I've seen those two girls right there walking down the road here on Bayou something." And said, "I saw where they came, so I was curious and I wanted to come over here because they're Indians, I think they are." He said, "Yes, we are Indians." I said, "Well, good." But by then, I never shook hands or nothing. I shook hands with him and my buddy. So we stayed there and he drank a couple of beers and then we left. And so we walked out, it was good. So then we go back to the quarter boat, we tell them. They don't believe it. We were in Houma one time. So we got like 6 or 7 of the guys that I worked with and so-called white guys. So I'm sitting there with them, sipping on a Coke, and the manager or owner and the bouncer, all of them had bouncers back then, came to our table. It was a rectangle table, and I'm about the middle of it. And the guy came back and he says, "How y'all doing?" Everybody said, "Oh, we're doing good." And he pointed across to me and says, "Who is he? He worked with y'all?" Said, "Yes." Said, "Where is he from?" Said, "He's from Oklahoma." He said, "Oh." Said, "Yeah, he's our Indian." "Oh, okay. So he's from Oklahoma, he's the Indian. Well, all right, y'all enjoy it," turned and walked away. Well, I never quite understood that because I really didn't see the hatred that they had for the Houma Indians until later on. The longer I stayed, the more I saw it. So here I am, dark complected in the summertime, and I'm the same color of the Houmas. So I could go to there. So I'd go to that bar and just talk to them over there, ask questions. I'd go over there by myself sometime, and they might have a dance, so I'd go there. So I got to know the family, the mother, the father and the two daughters. So then they asked me, the two girls says, we worked on land so we could bring our cars. So I had a car, it was probably the most beautiful car I ever owned in my life. A 1953 Ford convertible. It was a pace car. It was a pace car like they use in the Indianapolis 500. It was ivory with a gold dash, and the seats were leather, gold and ivory. Had a Continental kit on the back, fender skirts, twin spotlight mirrors, and it was a beautiful little car. It had, on each fender, it had the little checkered flag, racing flags. And then I had a paper that it was a replica, or not a replica, it was a copy of the Indianapolis 500 pace cars. So those had a big writing on it, but this one didn't. I had only seen two in my life. And so I would talk to them. So the girls told me one day, I'd go to work, I'd get there Thursday, and then there's Friday and Saturday nights, everyone is partying. So they asked me if they wanted to go to a dance with them they didn't say a bayou like everyone else. They called it was something like a bayou, something. But it was a prettier word than just bayou. And I said, well, yes. Back then it was jitterbug and slow dancing. So we go up the bayou, and it was a bar, and it was out over the water on stilts, and that's fascinated me. So they'd have a band, and it was all Houma Indians. There were no white people there. So I got to know some of their friends, and we danced and what. But there was someone, I never forgot his real name, but we would go to different dances up the bayou and in different places. So I was in a bar, and I was up at the bar drinking my Coke, and this one guy, he was built, he had a lot of muscles, and I've seen him fight, so he'd be fighting maybe one to two at the same time. So he was right there near where I was. He was arguing with somebody. Then another guy came up, and both of them were arguing with him. Well, those two were fighting, and the man next to me was standing there and turned around, and I'm next to him. And as this guy was fighting the two, he was backing up, and when he got close to where I was and the man next to me, the guy next to me had a beer bottle and was fixing to hit him in the back of the head. And out of instinct, I just raised my right arm up and blocked his arm, and the bottle fell out at the same time he turned around and saw what I did. And then he whipped him. So he beat three guys up. So we didn't think nothing of it, or I didn't. So he goes to the table where my two girls, as I call them, the two sisters, he goes over and he talks to them, because I'd sit with them a while and talk, and then I'd go stand at the bar and listen to them. So he talked to them and evidently found out who I was. So he walked up to the dance, the band was playing, and he walked up there and said something to the person singing and playing, and shut the whole band down. So he walked up on the bandstand, and said something to the band leader and shut the whole band down and took the microphone. He said, I want everyone to listen up. Everyone here listen to me. He pointed to me up at the bar and he said, you see that young man back there? His name is Beaver. He is an Indian from Oklahoma. He's working down here. He is here with some friends from down the bayou. He said, from now on, Beaver is my friend. Y'all don't forget that name and his friends. If y'all mess with Beaver or his friends, you're messing with me. Y'all understand that? Then he handed back the microphone and the band started back up. So the two daughters and I, we would go to a band playing. People would buy us Cokes and talk to us. They really walked around us, you know. They treated us extra good. And I'd see him every once in a while and say, hey, and that was it. And I'll tell you how good of friends that family became. The wife, the mother to these two daughters, she was extremely a pretty woman. Now, I have no idea how old she was, but she got two daughters about 18, 19 years old. So how old she was, I have no idea. But she was a very, very pretty woman. Older than me, but I always remember how pretty she was. Along in the bayou there, a lot of the homers, there were some very, very pretty women. They really were. So he told me one night, I got over there Friday night, and he says, I need a favor from you, Beaver. I said, what do you need? The such and such band is coming in and up the bayou tomorrow night, Saturday night. That is my wife's, that's so-and-so's favorite band. And we have something going on here, so he can't go to take her, and the two daughters can't go to take her, because they're needed to work, because they're having some kind of a celebration. And she wants to go. Would you take my wife to that dance? I said, well, sure, you know. So that's the kind of friends they were to me, how they treated me. So I took her, she introduced me to people her age. Everyone treated me beautiful. So I worked all along there, all the way into this road now that goes by where Ernest Dardar had his powwows, Grand Wa, which when I first saw the word, I pronounced it Grand Boyce. But everyone laughed at me when I asked for directions. They said, oh, so that's a foreigner. So I said, yes. Said, it's Wa. I said, okay. So they told me how to get there. But I worked from there all the way to down through Golden Meadow and all through there, all in that area in Leesville with the seismograph, Grand Isles. They used to have a hotel in Golden Meadow. It was like it was on the barge on piers, but it had to have been at least 3 stories high. It wasn't no little building, but it was a hotel. I stayed there one night, because I couldn't find a room, and we didn't have motels like we have today. So I spent one in there until I could get a room down there. I worked when I got out of the seismograph. Well, I went to working on the drilling rigs. So on the rigs down there, I worked on some of the inland barges, and you had to have a room, but most of my life was offshore on the drilling rigs. But In the Houma area, the blacks, I never saw many of them. But the Indians and the whites, they did not get along. The white people, and I'll use this word, hated them. They were very rude to them. Then people would look at me and being on with all these white guys, they treated me a little bit different, but then there were some that thought I was of that tribe down there. But I saw how they treated them. They treated them worse than they treated me in Oklahoma. In Oklahoma, they were racist and prejudiced. They don't like Indians either, most of them, or some of them. But that's okay. I want to work. You're going to pay me whether you like me or not. So I saw some terrible things in the Dulac area. I never saw one that went into Bro's bar, but I could go. But I had to be with someone, some white guys, for me to go into places in Houma, because the white guys would have beat on me. So I was told that, yeah, they'd catch one of the Indian boys out somewhere. If he's by himself, these white guys would beat him up. And I know they treated the women very badly. They called them all kind of names, you know. But I never met a bad person down there. Once I met them, and what is that? La Rose Cutoff. We were in that area for a while, up and down Bayou Buff, and all the way to Grand Isles, and then from there, see, all the way back to Houma, then down to the Dulac and all of the bayous. And I was telling Tammy one of the things, we had a 2-story quarter boat, and we had bunk beds, had a bunk at the bottom and one at the top. So I don't know how many men we worked, but when we'd moved from one location to another, we had a tugboat had come tie on to us, and behind our quarter boat was a water barge, they called it. It had a shop there that worked on our motors for outboard motors and kept our supplies and stuff throughout wherever we went. So we had a guy and called a supplier. So he would go just every day and go buy food we had cooks. We had like 2 or 3 men cooks. They cooked, 3 meals a day, or 2 meals a day, because our lunch, when we were out working the field, we all brought something to eat. And most of it was in a tin can, because a lot of time we were in the water, so you couldn't bring a bag or nothing, so you just carry something in a tin can, which was all right. And so in that area was some beautiful woods, beautiful land, and the people treated me very, very good. But they were treated very badly in that area. Like I said, I would slow down on the Shell Road to keep from dusting these people walking. And those people pulling boats, going fishing up and down, the non-Indians, they didn't give a damn. They just dusted them under from the broken shells. So one of my funniest stories of what I found, when I would come in, they would talk about, well, what'd you see today, Chief? I'd tell them about maybe a neutral rat, or I'd tell them about something that they just took for granted, but it was fascinating to me. And there was this big alligator we saw, or a bunch of little ones out there, so we'd catch the little ones. And this one guy, he was with the conservation, so we would catch them, and then he would sell them to these, like to the zoos or where they display the little alligators, and they would keep them. But so the people, as I said, in Dulac, I would love to know the names of those people that owned that bar. And I'm sure there's the daughters got to have children and tell them what great families. And that was the first family I met down there. And I don't remember their names, but up and down the bayous. And I was saying, when we moved the quarter boat, so we got a tug in the front pulling the quarter boat, behind us a water barge. We might have two tugs, one in the back, one in the front, to come around some of the bends. And so I told him, I said, bring me some oranges and apples. I'm going to throw them to the kids. The Indian kids all along the bayou, they were like little rats. I'd throw oranges and apples. The oranges sank, but the apples would float. So I got to, when we're going to move, I said, I heard we're going to move in a couple of days. I said, yeah, we're going to move further north, like maybe 2 miles up the bayou. So he would order me a case, get me a case of apples. So I'd go in the back and I'd throw them in the water, and these Indian kids would dive in and get the apples and come out. So up and down the bayou, I would throw out apples. Oranges sank, apples floated. So I enjoyed that, but as I was saying, they all treated me very, very good. But it was all a new experience, something that everyone takes it for granted, but the swamps, the marshes, the rozos, the cut grass, all of those things were brand new to me. I would say, we're going to be in there next month. I said, wow, that ought to be fun in there. That ought to be good, I would say that. But they said, oh, no, that's not fun in there. There's water that's over your head in some of the alligator holes. But we all carried snake bite. Someone in our group had a snake bite kit, but there was none was ever struck by a snake. We usually just flipped them out of the way. But if it was a cottonmouth and he wanted to fight, then we killed him. And our walking stick on the end, it was notched. And you'd take that snake, put it behind his head, and like cut the head off and push him way down in the mud. That way you didn't hurt him, and he could bite someone, strike someone as they came by. So we were very cautious about that. Shell Oil Company had I don't know if you call it a law, at our safety meeting. Some of the places they had coral snakes. Coral snake is one, he can only bite right here. Small, he can't grab, say, like a regular snake. And he doesn't have fangs, he has teeth. He's supposed to be very poisonous. Shell's ruling back then, I'll call it. If he bit you on the hand, then we was to cut that hand off. That actually what there was back then. Now this is back in the 50s. I like 56, 57, maybe the late 55s I came down. I came down the summer of 55. So between 55 and 58 when I was in Houma area. And then I got out of the seismograph and I worked on the rigs. I caught out of Grand Isles, Lafitte, you name it, I've caught a rig. So Houma in the Dulac area They were treated very, very badly. But you never saw them just everywhere because they were not allowed.